Hey friends, Andy here from the YouTube channel Your Friend Andy, and welcome to the podcast. With me today, I have Ben and Colin. Of course, you might know Colin as Decade Investor Online from his Twitter and YouTube channel, but also because he is the co-owner of Sleep Money Club with me, our online community, private community. But Ben, you might not know. I'm excited to introduce him. He is one of our teachers in Sleep Money Club, with a big focus on stock options. But there's a whole bunch more to Ben than just that. But that's one of the main things we're going to be talking about in this podcast. Between the two of these guys on this podcast right now, they made over $22,000 in income just from stock options this month, and the month isn't even over. That's kind of crazy. And the entire stock options team in Sleep Money Club, which these two gentlemen kind of head up and lead, and they're the people shouting the rally and banner cries of the war stock options war team here. $65,000 in June so far in income. That's just extra money for a bunch of these people who are doing this thing. So in this episode, you're going to hear about kind of how they got into this, what their kind of financial background is, how you might be able to get started doing this stock option strategy yourself, what the potential earnings are and stuff like that. But more than that, why you might consider checking this out yourself. But first, a quick word from this episode's sponsor. If you're like me, then you're either a small business owner or you would like to start your own business one day. And when you do that, you're going to need a banking solution that's truly built just for your business. That means no fees, no minimum balances, and no bookkeeping problems when tax season rolls around, because why would you want to make tax season even less fun? That's where Relay comes in. Relay is an online banking and money management platform that's a perfect fit for small businesses, and one I recommend. Again, Relay has no account fees, no overdraft fees, and no minimum balances, which means you get to keep more in your pocket. One of my favorite features is that you can get up to 20 individual accounts, including 2 savings accounts, to organize and allocate income for things like day-to-day expenses, investments, or taxes. You can now earn up to 3% APY on savings with Relay savings accounts. You can create virtual and physical debit cards for you and your employees in seconds. And best of all, Relay makes your bookkeeping speedy and meticulous by giving you ultra-detailed transaction data and directly syncing it back to QuickBooks Online and Xero. And so many more amazing features I don't have time to tell you about here. Really, they do a lot. It only takes 10 minutes to apply for a free Relay account, and you can do it online at relayfi.com/yourfriendandy. Again, that is relayfi.com/yourfriendandy. Okay, let's jump into this episode. So, welcome, Ben and Colin. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, man. Happy to be here. Love working with you guys, and happy to share a little bit of our journey.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here. And I think this is my 3rd or 4th podcast on Andy and Friends, and I feel like I'm it might be Decade Investor and Friends. I'm gonna take over your channel.
Yeah, maybe I should have thought about that ahead of time. Maybe I don't know. I don't want to get people too tired of Colin on the podcast, so maybe you should have sat this one out, Colin.
Yeah. Well, take care, everyone. Good to see you.
Okay. Well, I take it back. Okay. I take it back. So, before I get into some of the background on you two, can either of you, or maybe let's start with you, Colin, and then maybe Ben, you can do some follow up here. What are at their highest level, most basic level, to people who don't know what the heck I'm talking about? What are stock options?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way to explain stock options is everyone's probably heard of options, or a lot of people probably heard of options, whether it's you've tried them yourself. Maybe you've seen the YouTube ad of the guy in the Lamborghini being like, let me turn your 500 into 5,000 overnight, right?
I want to be that guy.
Yeah. Well, not here, sorry. Okay. So options is essentially, the idea is a buyer and a seller, and it is giving the buyer the right to buy shares at a certain price by a predetermined date in the future. And so at the highest level, the easy way to explain it is, okay, I am a casino, and the casino has the house and you have the players. When you're buying options, the buyer of an option, you are the player at the casino, meaning odds are against you, but you might be able to get lucky once or twice, right? You spin the slot machine, you're going to lose most of the time, but you might hit the jackpot every now and again. When you're the seller of the option, you're the house, meaning statistically, over the long run, you have better odds to make money, statistically, over the long run. You might lose, and someone might hit the jackpot, but at the end of the day, there's a reason why casinos look the way they look, and there's a reason why players walk out of the casino looking the way they look. And so when you have options, you have the buyer and the seller, and the easy way to explain it is the casino analogy.
Do you want to be kicked out by security, or do you want to look like Robert De Niro? That's the question.
Yes.
So Ben, maybe you want to expand on that a little bit, but also I'd love it if you were able to give like a real example of a trade that is a stock option trade. Very basically, like what happens, what are the mechanics that are going on?
Yeah, so I mean, kind of to touch on that point on being the option seller, the reason why why Colin and we focus on being the option seller is because we all have that mindset of buying stocks, holding them for the long term, building portfolios, trying to build generational wealth, right? And so the reason why we like being on the seller side of things is because we're already accruing these assets each and every week. We're already buying stocks each and every week, and so with that, you have the option, no pun intended, to be able to sell calls on your shares, or on the other side, you can sell the cash secured put. And so a good option that we go over, and one that I did today, was on Apple, right? So Apple's a company, almost a $3 trillion company as of today. Today I went and sold a call on it, right? And so what a call means, and Colin touched on this a little bit, but what a call means is you have to have 100 shares in order to write a call, and to sell a call option, to cover it, you have to have 100 shares, and you sell it for a predetermined strike at a predetermined date, right? In my example for today on Apple, I sold a call for 195 strike. Apple's trading roughly at 189, 190 right now, and I was paid a premium to do that, right? And so on the flip side of that, the buyer's going in and he's saying, you know what, I'm going to gamble $25 that I think Apple's going to go up next week, right? And on my side, I'm saying I think Apple's going to stay under 195. So it's technically a bearish bet. So you're playing both the bullish play, owning the shares, but the bearish play saying you don't think it's going to go over price. So there's a lot of like statistics and math and Greeks that maybe we'll get into on the other side of selling options. But I get paid a premium on my shares. And if you want to look at it in a dividend sense, like you can get paid each and every week for owning your shares, and there's a premium assigned to that, and it's all based off of probability, right? And so just on a high level, on the delta, my chance of profitability is roughly 90%, right? So there's a 10% chance that my shares get called away, or that I'm in the money next week, meaning that Apple is 195 next week. But there's also the higher probability that it won't be, right? And so that's just like a brief synopsis of one of the plays I made today. It may not have been a huge premium play, but it does allow my shares to continue to appreciate. In this sense, if they were to get in the money, that means that Apple has gone up $5 a share by next Friday, meaning my shares have appreciated another $500 in the next week.
And it seems to me that when you are selling stock options, and when you're doing calls, when you already own the stocks, the shares, you have at least 100 of them to do this. It seems like you not only, if you do it right, you get to enjoy the appreciation of the stock you want to hold over time, but you also are able to turn it into this kind of money generating asset on top of that, beyond dividends, beyond the appreciation, another level of income on top of that. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And kind of like when you spoke about a little bit earlier, how you said Colin and I had made, $22,000 combined so far in June, and we still have tomorrow, which is a big day for us. And the way that we're doing that is just how I talked about it. Apple is one that doesn't pay a huge premium, and I'm playing it a little bit safer. But there are other plays that we're making that are just literally as simple as that. We have shares in stocks, and we sell covered calls on them. Or on the flip side, we have the cash sitting in our brokerage account, and we want to own stock, but we want to buy it for a cheaper price, right? And so we're getting paid premiums to do both of those transactions, and we keep it very, very simple in ZZZ, and we try to just keep things very simple. But yeah, you can generate a lot of income. My goal when I first started this journey, as a raise, I first started with $100 a month, and then $1,000 a month, and then $5,000 a month, and then $10,000 a month. and now, $15,000 a month. And so this really does have the domino effect that you hear about with like dividend snowballs, to where like the bigger your portfolio gets, the more assets you can own and the more options you can trade. And I think all of us have seen that over the last year, and you've definitely both seen that over the last 6 months to year, as well as your portfolios have started to grow.
Yeah, and something with the option side of things as well, like when you're selling options, is the ability for you to decide on, hey, I don't want to do it this week. Okay, I don't have to do it this week, right? Like when you're selling options, it's not like I have to do it all the time or I can't ever do it, right? I tell people it's like riding a bike, right? And it doesn't matter if you're selling on stocks that are the highest risk penny stocks, if you're selling options, which they don't really have options, but cheap stocks that are crap stocks, or you could sell on Apple, the largest $3 trillion almost company. You can decide on the stocks you want to sell on. You can decide the risk you want to take. You can decide on how far out of the money you want to go. You like the no pun intended here, but the options within options are endless.
Very cool. Yeah, and so, and just to reiterate one more time, just for those listening who are still, I mean, it's a lot to take in at first. I'm personally someone who am only a few months into this. I started my stock options journey back in March, and both these two guys I'm talking to you right now had to beat these concepts into my brain until my hard head finally understood. But once you do get it, it really is a pretty simple idea overall. But it does take a little bit of like just immersing yourself in it, just going over the terms, understanding what strike prices and premium and calls versus puts and all these things that sound confusing at first, but trust me, they can be made much simpler. And at its very simplest core, you hop on a brokerage account and you're basically just making a contract with somebody. The price of stock is whatever it is today. You're selling a contract based on what you think it will be a week from now or a couple days from now or whatever. And then there's some rewards, upside or downside, attached to that. And then that's how you can play the system. And there's a whole bunch of different ways that they do that, but that's like the really ultra basic version of it. It's just a contract, and then there's some ways you can make money taking advantage of that contract if you do it right. So before we get into more the nitty gritty, because I'm sure there's lots of questions based on all that stuff they just said, I want to backtrack for a quick second, and I would love to get some background, and maybe we can start with you, Ben. I would just love, before we get into the stock option portion of the background, I'd love to know just a short and sweet kind of version of what your financial background is like. What was your finances before you figured things out? What was there an aha moment to make you go, oh, I should get on top of these? Were you always on top of it? Like, what did that whole thing look like?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like the reason why they call it personal finance, because it is so personal, right? And so like when I look at my journey, I've been investing since the day I turned 18, when I was, first allotted that I could have a 401k, and that, these brokerages were open to us. So I've been investing for a long time. I really started because, my name's Benjamin, the $100 bill, right? So I love money. I love math. That's right. Ching, ching. I love money. I love math. I'm kind of like a nerd. I'm in the IT industry. So I'm kind of a nerd, and I love like the charts and the thought of growing your money and compound interest and dividends. And so that's really how I started like jumping into it. I started with small account, especially when Robinhood became like a thing. I started with like a small account, and I mostly started with like dividends and buying stocks. And, they always talk about like buy stocks in companies that you utilize every day, right? And so you start with things that you see every day. Maybe it's General Mills, maybe it's, nowadays like a Tesla or just regular companies. And so that's how I started it. And I thought it was awesome that like me, just like a little, when I was young, a young kid could go in and own portions of companies, right? And then, I got into the whole like online thing of like trading penny stocks and like get rich quick and day trading. And, I could turn $10,000 or $10 into $10,000 in a month, right? And so like I had my lessons learned there. And then really like I started utilizing this strategy more when like I started getting older. I had a degree and I had a bigger paying job, and you kind of have to have like a little bit of money to be able to like learn, right? And so like I started like getting bigger paychecks and investing more, and like just getting out there and like understanding like what all these options are, right? And then where I really started turning on the burner in terms of like my options stuff was in the last like 2 years, right? It was made really easy on Robinhood. There was YouTube content coming out. People on Twitter were talking about it. And nobody in my personal life talks about any of this, but like online, like I found groups and I joined ZZZ like I think it was in May of last year or so. But yeah, I started joining like Discords and like talking to people online. And I started realizing like, oh my gosh, like if I put in the time, I can actually make like some good money doing this, right? And like this is like a way that I understand it's like pretty simple and it goes along with like my buy and hold strategy. And I started like, making $20 here and $30 here and just trading like smaller coins and smaller stocks. And this also was in the era of like stocks just went up every day, right? Like everybody remembers that in 2021.
You can
like,
do no wrong.
yeah, like you buy a stock today and then like tomorrow it goes up a significant amount, right? So like it was kind of a good time to start like really getting into it though, because like it showed you the power of what like options did. And like I also got into like the buying side, right? Where I was like buying calls and yeah, sometimes like you'd have massive wins, you could make $5,000 in seriously a week. And then like there was other where you could just literally lose 90% of it. So I had a lot of lessons learned there. But as I continue to scale up and I continue to like get more strategies under my belt and I continue to watch, YouTube content and read articles and read books. It's kind of just how it's progressed. And now it's gotten to the point where, I mean, we kind of talked about it, but I've made, like $75,000 doing this in the last 12 months, just trading options, not like appreciation from my shares, not day trades, like just purely from options income. And so it really shows like once you master this skill and maybe I haven't mastered it, but once you like start getting good at this skill, like it really can transform your financial freedom journey.
That's super cool. So when you first started doing the option stuff, where did you first hear about options? Where'd you get the idea to start trying it?
Yeah, YouTube, 100% YouTube. I'm like a YouTube connoisseur. I love watching YouTube and like, yeah, a lot of people hate on it and say like, like they're trying to scam you or make money off of you or whatever. But like a lot of people just like go on YouTube because they genuinely want like other people to win, or they're going through a journey and they want to show people like what their journey was, right? And that's how I learned. Like I just found people that they were literally just doing the same thing as what I do now. And maybe with like smaller accounts, or like I'll take a little bit from this YouTuber and a little bit from that YouTuber. But that was like one of the ways. And then also like Twitter. I'm a huge person. I love Twitter. I mean, obviously you guys both have big followings on Twitter too. And some people may not know I'm DarkMiner on Twitter. I don't think we talked about that, but that's who I am online. Most people don't know what I look like or who I am, but yeah, Twitter is a huge space too. There's a lot of people that really know a lot about finances on Twitter, and you can learn a lot.
I will link to all these guys' profiles and everything down in the description. Don't worry. So, Colin, what about you? I'd love to hear again about that kind of early story, and then also segue into when you first heard about options and what that has kind of looked like.
Yeah. So my initial investing story was 17 years old. Like any other teenage boy, I'm like, how do I get the Lamborghini? How do I get the mansion or whatever? So I got on the internet and learned about investing and learned about penny stocks and learned about all these things. So tried my way and a little bit of everything. Found that I like the boring ETF VOO that I have on my leg. I can't
tattooed,
let it go.
Not just on his leg, tattooed on his leg.
And I found that out, and so I've been doing that. And then it was about 2 years ago, roughly 2 years ago. I learned about maybe 2.5 years. I don't know. COVID, everything messes up with time. But learned about selling options on Twitter actually from a guy, and was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And so I put $500 or $700 in a Robinhood account and tried it on a stock. It was actually COTY, which is like a makeup company. Had no idea about it, but I was just like, I'm just gonna learn, right? So I can't remember exact number, $700 or whatever, into Robinhood. I just wanted to learn. So I put the money in there and was selling calls, selling puts. What happens if I get assigned? What happens if I don't get assigned? How do I buy back? How do I roll? I was literally just like, this $700 is going to teach me a lesson. If I lose it all, I don't really care. I just want to learn. And I did that for many, many months. And then I started to slowly scale up the portfolio. which in turn scaled up my income from it, and eventually scaled it to where my portfolio is today, and continually scale because I see it works. I've been doing it for quite some time. I'm trusted into that, but actually it's funny. I learned about stock options about 2.5 years ago, but like if I go back 5 years ago, one of my friends, he had sent me a YouTube video. At the time, I didn't realize what it was, selling options, but it was like, how to consistently make $500 a week with options. And I thought I was probably how most people think with options. I was like, oh, this guy just buys options. He gets lucky and makes $500. I really watched the video with like no sense of actually trying to understand, just like this guy's trying to sell me something. So I learned about options a long time ago, but I truly started like doing it about 2.5 years ago. And from there, it's just been like every single week trying to learn and master, you can never master the markets, but like trying to understand the markets and trying to understand, how can I best utilize my money to not only increase my income from options, but also do it in a way that's safe and not just like going, full portfolio on Mara calls, which I've done before, but like, now learning to different level of risk management as well. Because as you scale up your portfolio, you can make a lot of money on 100K going full portfolio, these crazy high risk things. But it's like, okay, how do I not only grow my portfolio and grow my income, but do it in a way that's being safe and managing my risk too.
Yeah, and people watch those videos and they might be turned off because they think, oh, this guy's trying to sell me something, or they see it like make an easy $500 per week, and they go, oh, it's a scam. There's no way this is, this options thing has got to be not real. But it's one of those few things. There's a lot of that stuff out there, but I will say, as my personal experience, and I am highly biased because I do it now, but it is definitely something that is one of those things that's actually worth looking into beyond that initial gut reaction, because it's not like so many of the other things out there. Also, I am, as you both are telling these stories, I'm realizing that I have chosen to have this podcast with two people who were light years ahead of me. Investing at 18, I was like, what is investing at 18? I made it to my 30s before I started figuring that stuff out. So way to go, making me look bad. I like it, but congratulations to you both. That's pretty amazing. That is a superpower, by the way. Anybody listening, if you're able to do that, you'll be so far ahead of everybody else if you can actually learn how to successfully invest at a young age, because it compounds so rapidly. It's wild stuff. Now, something when you were both talking, I've never actually thought to ask before, and I don't know the answer to this question, but Colin, when you were saying about putting a bit of money, $500, $700, whatever, to just try it out, and you don't care if you lose it. I love that idea, but that's still $500, $700, which could be a lot for somebody. Is there a way to do like paper trading? Are there places y'all recommend where you can trade with fake money and just learn the ropes, but it follows real market stuff? Like, I don't know. I'm curious.
Yeah, they have paper trading. I've never done it personally, but you can. I think TD Ameritrade or Thinkorswim has paper trading, and some other. I'm sure you can just find some like free softwares on the internet. But that's the one barrier, not the only barrier, but a big barrier to entry to selling options is capital requirement. So like when you're buying options, right, $700 could buy you some pretty good contracts on whatever, and you could turn that 700 into $1,500, double it in one trade, right? That's definitely possible. When you're selling options, that is just not going to happen. And that's why one of the first things I tell people about selling options is like, when you hear options and when you hear selling options, right, don't assume that you're going to become rich overnight. It is not a get rich quick scheme at all, right? Like, and what I'm about to say here, just a lot of people, they're going to be like, there's no way that's possible. But I aim for 1% a week on my money, which, for some people, if you're like, okay, that's 52% a week a year, yeah, you can extrapolate it, but I aim for 1% a week. Sometimes it's less, sometimes a little bit more, depending on the risk and the stocks. But anyways, it's not a get rich quick scheme. So with like $700, right? If you're even aiming for 1%, that's $7 a week. And most people are going to be like, well, what's $7 a week? I can't even buy me a latte anymore. Like, just not possible. But it's like, okay, that's 1% a week on my money, $7 that I made this week that I, would have not made it if I would have not even tried this out. So for me, like, that's the barrier to entry. But it's also, don't focus on like the actual dollar amount, especially when you're just starting out. Just focus on how can I consistently, win with this strategy. Maybe it's 0.5% a week. Maybe it's 0.25% a week. But it's like, don't focus about the dollar amount, because especially when you're just starting out, you probably don't want to throw 50K to this. You don't want to throw 100K to this strategy because you don't feel confident. You don't feel, you're not sure about it. But it's like, 1% a week, just focus on that. Focus on the percents, especially when you're just starting out, not about the actual dollar amounts.
Yeah, that's a super, super good point. And I can see a little bit of like, as you're talking about this, thinking of the excitement and stuff you have for this. So my next question is just, we can start with you, Ben. I'd just like to know, you've obviously gotten into this, you're doing it, and there's the money aspect, which we all like the money aspect, but like, why? Because clearly you spend a lot of your time thinking about options. You're the options teachers in Sleep Money Club, so you think about these things all the time. So why do you love options so much?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like there's the money aspect of it, but like really, like I think anybody that does anything in the finance field, like does it so that someday that they can have some type of financial freedom, right? And so the one thing that we really have no control over is our time. We can't stop the clock. We can't go back on the clock, and time is the only thing that continues to run that we cannot stop. And so, like for me, the reason why I get excited about it, the reason why I spend so much time on it, the reason why I love teaching people about it is because there's this mindset, and I grew up in this, and maybe this has gone on forever, but there's this mindset that you have to work, 40, 50, 60 hours a week, every week until you're 65. And then when you get to 65, then you can enjoy your life. Then you have money, then you can be financially free, and I see both of you guys talk about this, and there's a lot of people that do talk about it and a lot of people that don't, right? And so as I got through school and, I started working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, I'm like, there's like, I'm down for the grind, but like, there's no way that I'm going to do this for the next 50 years. Right. And there's no way that this is the only way I can do this. And like, kind of like a segue to jump off to that point, like on my journey, right? Like one thing that really like propelled me to the next level is, and this is unrelatable to some and relatable to others, is like, I had a child, right? And as soon as I had that child, I'm like, wow, like I've got to provide for somebody else, right? It's not just me. It's not just my wife. Like I have to provide for somebody else. I want to leave her with a better life than I had or that I've had. And so like I said, what can I do? What other options? Like I have a really good paying job, but what other things can I do that I have access to right now? Or what other things do I have access to that I can continue to work my 9 to 5 job, right? But I can make more money, or I can make my money work for me, right? And so I went down the rabbit hole of options and dividends and a whole bunch of other things. And that's just part of the journey. But really like, I had, everybody has their own why, and that was my why. And that's why I started going down the rabbit hole of options. But yeah, like to like bring it back around, like that there's, everybody has a reason why they do things, and everybody has different parameters. And the cool part about this strategy is kind of like Colin said, like you can do it as much or as little as you want. You can trade as much or as little as you want. You can take on as much risk as you want, and you can make as much income as you want, right? There's no cap to the potential you have. There's no like, if Colin's trading options on Mara or on Tesla, then I can't do it, or Andy can't do it, right? And so like that's the coolest part about this strategy, and the coolest part about the stock market is there's no cap. There's nobody telling you when you have to do it and when you can't do it. And so that was really intriguing to me. That really excited me. That was one of the reasons why I really loved, and I put a lot of time into this, and now I teach it. And there's people that are probably far better at this than me, but I teach it because I love it. I'm passionate about it. I love the fact, I love money. I love companies. I love being able to invest in companies that are making a difference in this world. And I love to be able to have some sense and control of my time, right? And maybe not right now. I can retire even though some may say that $15,000 a month on a side income is enough, but like that's the greatest part about it, right? Like you determine your personal financial journey, and yeah, so like I'd say, yeah, I mean, that's why I do what I do, and that's why I'm going to continue doing what I do, and why I try to help others do what I do, because this isn't something that's taught in school. This isn't something that maybe your neighbor's going to talk to you about, or your brother or your dad. Like this is something that's like very foreign. And it's available, and mostly the rich are using it, and that's why I love talking about it to just the regular Joe Schmo on the street.
Which is interesting. The last thing you said there, I've talked to people about options, and people are like, oh, if you could actually make this kind of money, if it was really as good as you say it is, then wouldn't everybody be doing it? And it's just, there's enough barrier to entry, or there's enough confusion around it that just everybody doesn't do it. And that's what's so cool about it, is like, if you can find little pockets of people who are interested in it and learn it, well, then you can start doing it. But that's,
Yeah.
it's just like investing and stuff. It's just not a
Yeah.
popular topic among, and this is even more of a niche thing than just
Yeah.
general investing.
No, it really is. And there's like obviously like a level of complexity to it, and you have to like apply for options, and like you have to put some effort into it and do some due diligence. But like kind of to the point that we talked about a little bit earlier about like, could put $500 in or $700 in, and that is a lot of money. Like I'm not discounting that that's a lot of money, but you will learn a lot with that. But on the flip side, like it's not like the way, at least the way that we do it, right? It's not like you're gambling in the sense that you just throw $700 at it and you can lose it tomorrow. Like if you're investing in a company like SoFi or whatever, right? Like a lower cap company that you can afford, like you own a portion of that company. That company now is in your portfolio, right? And so it's not like you buy the shares and you don't own anything. Like you own shares, you are a shareholder in that company, and you are on their journey, right? You are a supporter in their journey. And so that's one thing to remember at the end of this, when we put money into these companies and we trade options on these companies, like we are the people that are backing their journey, right? And we are the ones that are believing in them just on a public side. And you can do that just from your phone or from your home in just a few clicks of a button, which is it's so awesome.
It's super cool. So Colin, yeah, I'm curious, Colin, to hear your answer of like why you're so neck deep in this whole world of options. Like what keeps you going with it?
Yeah, I mean, number one, I think like what DarkMiner said, like the ability to tear down tear down maybe not the right way to say it, but like the rich, the wealthy, the big banks use this strategy to generate income on their portfolios. And so it's like, yeah, we might not be at the scale of these big, in terms of capital wise, but we can utilize this and understand why they're doing it. And I want to share it to the whoever can hear, whoever can listen to me, whoever wants to listen to me, maybe is a better way of saying it, that this strategy, it does work. It's worked for my portfolio. It's worked for DarkMiner's portfolio. It's worked for everyone that does options in ZZZ and not in ZZZ. Like I see on my Twitter all the time, like people are utilizing this strategy to either generate extra income to reinvest and grow, to generate extra income to buy into long-term holds, or people are literally using this strategy to live off of. Like we have a guy in ZZZ right now that retired and left his 9-to-5 job that sells options full-time as an income. He did 13 or 14K last month or this month in June. Yeah, this month in June. And like, that's pretty wild to think about, right? And so to me, I get so excited about this stuff because you see the pathway to like, hey, this strategy, maybe not today, maybe not next year, maybe not 5 years from now, but maybe 7 or 10 years from now, truly I could like utilize what I've been learning for the next 7 years to retire, or maybe not retire, but like generate income and leave a 9-to-5 and actually have this side income become my main income because I trust it, I built confidence in it, I understand it, and it's making me 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50K a month off of my portfolio that is enough for me to live off of, pay my taxes, and still reinvest and buy more, of my long-term holds that I want to use. And like prime example is, the last few months I've been like taking a portion of my profits from selling options and buying long-term holds just to secure the profits and rather than reinvesting. And I have over 100 shares of one of my long-term ETFs, SEHD, which is like 7K roughly worth of stock that I didn't have before. I would have never had before, but I used the options income to buy 100 shares of this. That's going to pay me and grow for me on the back end. Well, I'm not even selling options on it. It's just going to grow for me and grow my wealth even more. Like to me, that's so powerful to think about that. Like I'm using my own money. Like people say, use your money to make you more money, right? Now I can visually see myself and see it real time of my money making me more money. Like that's to me is super, super powerful. And I want everyone to at least learn it. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm not saying you don't have to do it. Do what you want to do with the information. But it's like, I'm just showing you that I do it. DarkMiner does it. Andy does it. A bunch of people in ZZZ do it and it works and we see results real time. Like that's really, really powerful.
Yeah. So we're all doing it. So why aren't you? Like get with the program. The cool kids are doing it.
Yeah, but like to that note, like other people just don't. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, right? Like you go to school because you don't know what you don't know, or you take classes because you don't know what you don't know, or you watch YouTube because you don't know, right? Like Andy has a bunch of guides on YouTube, right? Well, why do you watch them? Because you don't know. And so like the only way to learn things is to invest time and to seek knowledge from places that either teach it or books or places that offer the knowledge,
Yeah, and something on that too. Like I think what happens is, especially on social media, but just in general, right? When people hear, oh, this guy made 15K, or this guy made 7K, or this guy made 2K, or this guy made 50K, it doesn't matter the income. What they see is immediately, that's a scam. Oh, they can do it, but I can't do it, right? Or they have something I don't know. And rather than trying to actually learn and understand and want to actually like educate on how did they actually do that, they immediately go, that's a scam. I can't do that, right? And so I challenge everyone listening, even if you listen to it and you're like, and you listen and try to understand and you understand, okay, this is not for me, I don't care. I challenge you to just don't immediately say, oh, this is a scam. Oh, this guy, these are scams. Like, it's not a scam. It's works. It's been working real time, but just try to understand it rather than immediately going, that's a scam. Because if you do that, then you're never going to grow. You're never going to learn because you immediately assume everything's a scam.
Yeah, for sure. And I will, to take a quick backtrack, we have said DarkMiner multiple times, just so you know, miner as in crypto mining. He also has had a big hobby of doing mining. So if you're wondering why we keep saying that word, if you're watching the video version of this podcast, he's holding up a GPU, a big boy. Is that a 4080 or 4090 or something?
No, that was just a 3070 Ti.
Oh, wow. That's a big 3070 Ti.
Yeah, Zotac girthy.
iPhone 12S.
But if I can jump on that question too, the thing I've loved about stock options, selling stock options is, which you both kind of said in various ways, is the accessibility of it. I love that just about anybody can do this thing like from their phone and make actual meaningful like returns and income with even not a lot of capital to start with, from their phone with just like a Robinhood app, or if you're different, if in Europe or something, interactive brokers or something like that. But it's like the barrier to entry is just your ability to, try to learn something new, understand it, and then put just a little bit of money forward to actually start playing with it. And then you just start earning money. I just love that. There's so many things. It's like huge investments required to see real returns. Like, I think all of us to some degree love the S&P 500 for various purposes. But, yes, it's amazing. Over its, 100 plus, year lifetime, it has, a 10% return. And that's a great tool. But to, truly get big moves with something like that, you need big amounts of money, with it. But how do you build up to those bigger amounts of money? Well, there's some interesting ways like selling options where you can take smaller amounts of money, more aggressively earn, and then you have more money to throw at things like that are considered safer or more stable, or a little bit slower on the wealth building. But over long term, you want to be in. And so just the opportunity and the ability for just anyone to kind of pick it up is one of the reasons why I've taken to it so much, to talking about it at least. So let's talk a little bit about some of that nitty gritty stuff. You both are not good examples of this because you spend a lot of time on it, but for someone who's kind of newer to it, like, what does the spectrum of time look like? What on the low end, how little time is needed to actually do this strategy from week to week? And then if you really get into like, what kind of time are you talking?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we are into it because like we kind of do this like for fun, and we do this for teaching, and we do this to show others, and like we are passionate about it. So we like spend a lot of time. But on the flip side, like there's the other side where like you said, the S&P or QQQ, right? Like some of these, like the NASDAQ 100 or the SPY, right? Like an investor can legitly just own shares, and you obviously have to have 100 to be able to sell options on it, but they can just own shares. They never have to think about it. They can go into their account once a week, once a month, bi-weekly, once a year, and they can sell an option. And that is the 30 seconds that it takes to sell that option is the only thing they have to do until that expiration date. So like, that's the coolest part about options is like, you can trade it as little or as much as you want. And obviously there's like risk and rewards that goes along with that, right? But like, I always like try to use like the SPY or QQQ, which is a NASDAQ 100. I try to use the NASDAQ 100 as an example. So like, if you're a younger investor, or you're somebody that doesn't say like, you're not trying to pick a stock, right? You just want 100 stocks or 500 stocks. You can go in and you can just start accumulating or already have a bunch of shares in that company, and you can sell calls on that as little or as much as you want. And you could spend as little as two minutes a week, or as much as as much as every single day, right? Like you can do as little or as much as you want, and you can be and engage as little or as much as you want.
Yeah, I know a gal that she sells options on her portfolio, and she spends no more than an hour a week on Mondays writing puts and calls. And she does, she has a large capital amount, so she goes pretty far out of the money. So she plays really safe bets with options in her strikes. But she spends no more than like an hour, and she makes a couple grand a week, and that's it. And like that's what she wants to do. And then myself and DarkMiner, and I'm sure other people too. Like I kind of want to take opportunities when they come. So it might be a Wednesday or a Thursday and we see a big sell off or whatever. I'm going to sell some puts. Now you don't have to do that at all. Like there's no, you have to do this or you have to do that. It's just however much time you want to spend on it and how like, safe do you want to be with your strike prices, how not. Like if you're going real aggressive, you probably want to pay more attention. If you want to go a little bit more hands off, you might go further out of the money and you're a little more conservative. And you can have a lot of movement in your share price. Like there's really no, again, like I said at the beginning, you have options within options. So like the risk you want to take, the time frame, if you want to go weeklies, if you want to go monthlies, there's so many different options you could do within options that like make it really for anyone if you're interested in doing this stuff.
Yeah, I have the most modest of the three of us portfolios, but I was able to earn just almost so close, almost got there, $2,000 in June this month, and I can tell you firsthand, I have spent less than 2 hours in total, probably less than an hour total this entire month, doing those options, selling those options to make that $2,000. It can be incredibly hands off. It's not passive, but it's very, very close to passive once you actually do the things. So I would love for both of you DarkMiner, Ben, you were saying this a little bit, you kind of hinted at it, but we haven't really got into, really truly what the difference between puts and calls are. Maybe that's a little bit too in the weeds for this, but I would like to talk about how if you're just someone who wants to just buy and hold some stock you really like, how something like if you have a bunch of cash in your Robinhood or whatever, and then how cool puts can be for like you get paid and you accumulate. Maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, and I can use the example of one of the ones that I shared today, just so it's like real time and now. But yeah, so we talked about calls, and you obviously like just at a high level, you have to own shares in order to sell calls. And on the put side of things, like if you're going to go buy an asset and you have the money to buy 100 shares worth of it, then what you can do is you sell a cash secured put, right? And that just means literally what the name is, cash secured put, right? So you have the cash in your account to be able to buy 100 shares, which is the contract for the strike that you choose. And the real power of this is like, I'll take today's example. So I sold a Tesla 232.5 put, right? And so in order to do that, I had to have $23,500 in my brokerage account ready to go. Now Tesla today is sitting at a lot higher of a price. I don't know, what's it, like 250? It's at 257, right? So if I wanted to own Tesla and I'm like, you know what, I love Tesla, I like their vision, I want to own the stock, I don't have to ever think about it again, but I want to own the stock. Well, what you can do is you can sell a put and you just have the cash collateral available and you select the date. For me, I selected next Friday, right? So by next Friday, I sold a put at the 232.5 saying that I will buy those shares, 100 shares for $232.50 per share times 100, so 23,500. And I want to get paid to do that. So you literally choose the price that you want to buy them at, and you get paid a premium in order to do that. So that lowers your cost right off the bat, right? And you also have the decision where if the stock's at 257 today and you're selling it for 232, then the stock has to fall significantly. So not only did you buy it at today's price, but if you were able to buy it for the price that you chose, you got paid to do it, and you got to spend less capital than it would have cost you today. So it's a really powerful tool. We have a lot of things that we do with cash secure puts. Some of them are premium plays, some of them are safer, some of them are more risky. But you can literally get paid to buy a stock, right? And it's such a powerful tool. And we've been making a bunch of money, and we'll continue to make a bunch of money because like there's the other side of the house where the person that I'm selling the put to is saying, I think Tesla's going to go down by next week and I want to profit off of it going down. But for me, I don't care. I just want to own Tesla and I'm going to hold it for the next 10 years. And so if it goes down to the strike price that I chose, now I got paid and I got my 100 shares, right? And I got it for a cheaper price. So there's different ways of looking at it. And obviously like the internet can spin things the way that they want to spin it. But like at the end of the day, like you're just getting paid to buy the shares for cheaper. That's really what it is. It's that simple.
Yeah, I really like that. I like that also if you have a particular stock. So we, in Sleep Money Club, we like to do a lot of trades around Mara, which is the stock ticker MARA, which is for Marathon Digital, which is a giant Bitcoin mining company. And right now that stock is like $12 or something, maybe $13. I didn't see what it closed at today.
13, yeah.
It's been flying, but if you wanted to own a bunch of those shares, which I do, you put your money up, and 100 shares of that is not nearly the price of 100 shares of Tesla, for example. You pick your price, you have your cash to secure that contract, that put, and then if it doesn't get to that price that week, well, then you can sell it again the next week and the week after that. And you just keep collecting this premium, which is just the reward you get paid for doing that contract, selling that contract. And you just get paid that every single week until eventually, hopefully, the market adjusts and it hits that price. And then you own your 100 shares of it, So you made all this money leading up to then. Now you have the stocks you wanted to begin with at a price you wanted it at. And if you want to earn money on those shares you now have, you can turn around and you can sell call options on it, which is this beautiful, they call it the wheel strategy. It's this beautiful kind of cycle, and you can just keep making money on either side of that equation, which I think is just such a cool thing. And I've done this. I've done it with Coinbase quite a bit now. And I will say the first time it happens that you actually get to sign those things and to figure that out, it's a little bit scary. It's like, what's happening? But then you sell it again and get it taken away, called away, and this whole thing, it's just this fun thing, and you make a bunch of money in the process, which is super cool. So you can add to that if you want, Colin. But also, I have the next question I'm going to jump into is that you can start with is if person listening to this, they're like, okay, this is interesting. I want to get started, but I just don't know how much money I need to start with. So what would you say to that person, Colin?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need, like I said, the barrier to entry to selling options, or one of the barriers to entry is capital. And like you just mentioned, you're looking at the interesting thing about options is entry, capital requirement all depends on the underlying asset. It's not like everyone needs the same amount to start. So if you want to start selling options on Tesla, which is a roughly $250 stock right now, you're going to need about $25,000. Now, if you want to sell options on Mara, like you just mentioned, Andy, about a $13 stock, that's going to cost you about $1,300 to get in, for 100 shares. So it truly depends on the underlying asset. Like I said, with my journey, I started with like $700. It was like an $8 stock, but I started by selling puts, so I only needed $700, and I was able to start my journey. If you want to start selling on, Apple or Amazon or Tesla or QQQ, right? Those are a little bit higher prices, going to cost you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000. So it truly depends on what the underlying asset or the underlying stock you want to sell on. But if you just want to start and learn, there's some good $5, $6, $8 stocks like SoFi that I sell on, which is about a $8 stock, give or take, $880-ish. That's going to cost you about $880 to, less than $1,000 to get started.
Very cool. And then maybe Ben, you can start with this one. If that sounds good, and you're like, okay, I can put up, 500 to $1,000 to get started. Which, by the way, listeners, I started with 1,000, and then I quickly scaled up to 2,000. I stayed there for a while, and then I started scaling a little bit faster. But the point is, once I figured it out. But the point is, you can start with that amount, and we have people in Sleep Money Club who do $1,000, and they pay for their subscription and more just for the monthly earnings. It's kind of crazy. But you can start with very, modest amounts in terms of stocks and earn decent rewards on this stuff. So maybe, Ben, you can answer this next one is, if this sounds good to you, you're listening to this and this is cool, but you're just not quite sure where to start. And then Colin, you can also jump in too. Like, where should that person get started in their stock options journey?
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, I'm a connoisseur of YouTube. Like, there's so much free content on YouTube, and like I provide it, Colin provides it, you provide it. Like, a lot of us share a lot of our journeys on YouTube, And so there's a lot of free content there. You can literally watch us trade options each and every single week, right? And so there's free content on YouTube. There's how-to guides, especially like tailored to your broker. Like I know there's like some out of the country, or maybe you use Thinkorswim, or maybe use Robinhood. Like there's so many different brokers. And so like there's a learning curve not only on how to trade options, but there's a learning curve on what broker you use too. So like YouTube is a phenomenal source. I'm heavily invested in Twitter, and all of us are. There's also a lot of resources on Twitter. Like I share my journey, and we all share a journey of like what options we're trading and why we're trading them, and like people ask questions, and like we try to like tell them or justify like the reasons why we make our decisions. And so like there's a lot of people on Twitter, and people just like, at least from my experience, there's a lot of people that just love to share their journey because they've learned things and it's changed their trajectory, and they want others to, you know, be able to share that same success. And so there's a lot of really cool people on Twitter too. And then like on the flip side of that is like, not to like plug Colin's course or anything like this, but like he has a really good course, and there's a lot of really good courses where like they break down what an option is, what gamma is, what theta is, what delta is, right? Like, and there's a lot of like, you can get as deep into options or as light into options as you want, right? And so like there's guides that there's a lot of guides on the internet that will show you like the weeds of it, or they'll give like tutorials or videos or talk you through it. And so like there's just so much content out there that's free and also paid that like really can help transcend you to the next level in your journey, right? And like I said, like you can go as easy or as heavy into it, right? Like you can be like a nerd like Colin and I are, and look at the charts every day and watch the RSI and the Bollinger Bands and the SMAs and the EMAs and like get into like the weeds of it, right? And like that can make you a lot more money. But you can also like tone it back as much as Andy's doing it, and you can literally spend 5 minutes a week writing the contracts based on the price that you know of that stock, or based on just like purely the delta or the chance of profit, right? And so like that's the power of it. Like there's so much content online for free, and you can spend as little or as much time as you want on it.
And of the things you just said, those terms, I know like 3 of them. So yeah, that proves the point.
And that's okay. And you made $2,000 this month, and you know none of those.
That's right.
That's the cool part about it.
Yep.
And on that too, like with my course, it's $50. But if you join Sleep Money Club, Sleep Money Club is $60 a month. You get all this. You get to see our pretty faces all the time, and you get my course for free. So it's only like whatever. That's a little plug for a Sleep Money Club. But truthfully, like, the greatest thing you can do is educate and learn these skills, just because, you know, you learn, you might spend, either you free, you get a course, you join a membership of a community and learn from all these people or whatever to keep you accountable. I think that's the biggest thing with Sleep Money Club is like we literally have a family of options traders in Sleep Money Club that are like, we're checking in on each other, like, hey, how you doing? We're sending pictures of, hey, I'm like, Ben this morning was walking his dog. He sent a photo, right? And people go on vacation, they share photos, like it truly is a family. But the best thing you can do is like, number one, educate. And if you want to actually learn, like, pay attention, you know, follow the markets, try to understand what's going on. And maybe if you want to go an Andy approach and take a more hands-off approach, you still can be successful at it, right? You know, there's risk. We're not like trying to sell you that this thing is risk-free. There's always risk, but if you understand it and you follow it and you get surrounded by people that are also doing it, and you get surrounded by nerds like myself and Ben, we will be like, hey, look, here's the Bollinger Bands, or, you know, here's why we're looking at this, here's that, and let us nerd out for you, and then, you know, you can still be successful at it. Like I have a friend that in real life that he wanted to start selling options, and he has about $3,000 in his account, and this week he made $100 on $3,000, right? And for him, like, that's the greatest thing, you know. It's good money for what he's doing. He's a student, he doesn't make much money. It's like, dude, you made $100 on $3,000, like, that's pretty impressive to do so. So there's just a lot of power in this stuff if you can understand the risk and understand everything involved. Like, it truly is a very powerful strategy.
Yeah, I'd just like to note on that, like, he talks about like his friend, and like one of the cool parts about like the Discord or like the online spaces is, for me, when I got into this strategy, right, like I'm watching all this content, I'm reading all these books, and like I'm like, well, I can't talk to my wife about this, like she doesn't care or doesn't know, right? Like I can't talk to people at work because like finances, it's just kind of like a hairy subject to talk to people at work. And like I don't really want to talk to family about this because, you know, like people could lose money or like make a bunch of money and like things can go south, right? And so like the cool part about the internet and Discords and Twitter spaces and stuff like that is you can find people that have the same passion or want to learn the same things as you, right? You can find people that will look out for you, that see something that you didn't see, or you're busy at work, but they saw that a stock dropped 10%. It's a good day to sell a put on it, or like the stock's up, and like there's a family of people, or there's people that you can find on the online spaces that you can go through this journey with, right? And I think it's been powerful for all three of us, right? Like, and Andy said, like, like, I'm not ready to do this, I don't want to do this, and then like finally, like, got into it, and then he relied heavily on Colin and I for like, what stock should I look at, like what strike should I look at, right? And then all of a sudden he doesn't need us anymore because he's too cool. But like that's the power of like the online communities that we have at just the tips of our finger every day, right? Like we can get as much into the online community as we want, or as little out of it. And so I think that's another thing. And then like one other thing I'll share too is like Colin was talking a little bit about, like, he had a friend with $3,000, and why this hits home for me is like I've been teaching my brother over the last both of my brothers over the last 6 months how to trade options, right? And at first they knew nothing. They didn't understand any of the Greeks. They didn't know what stocks to use. They had little capital. And then all of a sudden they start thinking differently about the way money works, right? At first it's like, I've got to go to my 9 to 5. I've got to work 40 hours a week. And the only way I can make more money is if I work more than 40 hours a week, right? And then all of a sudden they're like, ooh, I made $50 this week, and I only spent 2 minutes doing it. Ooh, I made $100 this week, and I only spent 5 minutes doing it, right? And so like your mind kind of shifts in the sense that you're not trading time all the time for your money. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And that we've talked about it a little bit, but I just think like in hindsight, like there's a lot of power behind options. There's a lot of power behind knowledge that the internet shares and that people are willing to share. And you really do control your own financial freedom.
Yeah. And to piggyback off the Colin story there again about the friend, like I was thinking the other day, it's like you put $1,000 into a Robinhood, and if you're able to earn $15 to $20 dollars a week or something like that, that is $1,100 a year in extra money on a $1,000. You've doubled your money in a year effectively. Now that's maybe on the more slightly aggressive side of selling the options and stuff, but it is achievable. But it just shows you like the potential, or just making that extra, $3,000 in there, make the extra $50 a month, extra $100 a month. That's still big, because that's $1,000. Everybody would love to have an extra $1,000 a year or whatever, especially if you're paycheck to paycheck, you have some struggles with earning money or whatever. So that's why this is pretty dang powerful. But also, I'll piggyback and I'll do one more shameless plug for Sleep Money Club. Obviously, we're all here because we are in Sleep Money Club, and we love Sleep Money Club. And in the club, we have an incredible options community within a community. Really great people, super friendly, just kind of welcome me into that world as a complete noob and dummy, and help me figure things out. And Sleep Money Club has a 7-day free trial, risk-free. You can just join, you can try it all out, and then just leave and not pay a dime, and if it's not for you. So it's very, very low risk, but most people who do join, results speak for themselves. They make money, and oftentimes they make more than the subscription fee, and it all is worth it, and onwards and upwards. So I have 2 last questions I want to kind of close us out here that I think would be really good ones to end on. And the first one, we can start with you, Colin. What in this whole journey of selling options, if you could rewind the clock, what do you wish you knew a lot sooner?
I wish I knew that Mara would go to $70 in the last bull run when it was less than $1 back. No, I'm just kidding.
Very useful. Thank you.
Yes. Very. I think I wish I would have learned risk management earlier. Like there was a time when I made the joke early on in the podcast, but like I truly did go full portfolio, like all in on Mara calls and Mara puts, like on, I had a $15,000 account and I was literally trading $15,000 on Mara, which it luckily, like it all worked out, like hindsight, it all worked out. I didn't lose my money, but, I wish I would have learned risk management, which it's hard to do when you have a smaller account, because if you have $1,000 account, like, SoFi is $8 a share, which would be $800. Like that's gonna be all your account. But like as I grew my account, I wish I should have known portfolio risk management a little bit better, and now I understand it a little bit better. So I think that would be the one thing that I wish I would have known. And number 2, I wish I'd have known that VOO doesn't have as good as options liquidity as SPY, because now I have VOO tattooed and I can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
That's all.
I get
Very
crap
good.
about that all the time. Yeah.
What about you, Ben?
Um, the biggest thing for me, I think, like, kind of like along with the VOO thing, is like there are assets that are better for this strategy and assets that aren't better for this strategy. And when I started buying assets, a lot of those stocks just didn't have the liquidity and the options flow and the expiration dates. And so I started putting money into, dividend things or dividend stocks or stocks that literally gave me no option to sell options on, right? So like SHD is a great example. Like it's a fantastic ETF, right? And it pays a good dividend and it has a good track record, but like you can't sell options on it. And so you could have 100 shares of it, which is going to tie up $7,000 worth of your money. But the only option you have is just to hold it. And I'm not saying like anything's wrong with that, but like there was a lot of lessons learned along the way where I would put money into things and then there was no way to make more money with it outside of just purely what the market gave me in returns and dividends. And so that was like one of the like biggest things I learned along the way. And then also like just to be vulnerable, right? Like options are scary at the start and stock markets are scary at the start and people do lose money and people do make money, right? And so like the only way to learn, just like anything else, is to just do it. And like maybe you'll lose money and maybe you won't, and maybe you'll lose time and maybe you won't, but like there's no way to get into the stock market and to get comfortable with things not doing it. And so like one of my favorite phrases is like be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? Or like get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's just sometimes that's the way to do it. And so like those are probably the two biggest things.
Yeah, I like the vulnerability one too. I mean, when I was getting into options and stuff, I make YouTube videos about finance and I talk about investing and all this stuff, and yet I still had to go into Sleep Money Club in the channel and be like, what does this mean? And like have people talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's great because I got to learn, and they were very gracious in teaching me. And so if you're able to take a step back and put your ego aside and just be open to making mistakes and asking what seemed like dumb questions at the time, you will come out better on the other end. And so last question is, I'm just curious, we can start with you this time, Ben. In the world of options, and maybe it's the income amount, maybe it's the total holdings, I don't know, you take your pick. What are your longer term goals? So maybe it's a year from now or maybe 5 years from now. What are you looking to do?
Yeah, you mean like in a dollar amount maybe, or
sure, however you want to interpret
so
it.
like I mean like my biggest thing is just financial freedom, right? Like I at the end of the day, like I have a house and I have a car and I have kids and like I have needs, right? And like so at the end of the day, the whole reason why I spend so much extra time outside of my 9 to 5 grind is because like I just want to have financial freedom. I want to be able to control my time. I want to know that if I died tomorrow that my family's taken care of, or like I just want to make sure that like at the end of the day, like I have control over my destiny and it's outside of just my employer. Because I hate the mindset that if I get fired tomorrow, I might not be able to make my mortgage payment in 6 months, right? Or like there's a whole bunch of things like tied to that, but yeah, like it's just financial freedom. Like that's my end goal. That's the thing I'm pushing for. That's the thing that keeps me motivated. And obviously like family plays a big part of that. But like I like being able to control that destiny and not have to wait for my boss to give me a raise once a year in order to get a raise, like, and like we talked about this a little bit maybe, but like one of the powers with this strategy, just to circle back to it, is like a lot of people online are like, I don't have $500 a month or $1,000 a month like you do to invest into stocks. Like, but like it really is such a snowball effect to where when you start with $1,000 and you make that $10 a week, well, guess what? Next week you have $1,010, and then you make $10 more. Now you have $1,020, right? And so like there really is a snowball compounding effect. Like, I mean, I know I made like $15,000 this month, but like now next month I have an extra $15,000 that I didn't have the month before that. And that $15,000 can now trade me 10 more contracts of Mara or Riot or whatever, right? And so now now the same money I had can now make me, it's 15,500 next month. And so like there's a huge compounding effect. And especially like if you're young or old, it doesn't matter. Like every single trade that you make like gives you the opportunity to make even more the next week and the net following week and the following month. And so yeah, like that's really the power behind all of this, and being able to control your own destiny and your time and your race towards financial freedom.
And to speak to that compounding aspect of it with you specifically, Ben, when I first started dipping my toes into at least learning about options, was February and the beginning of March, and I want to say you were making like 4 or 5,000 a month or something. Fast forward now, several months later, and it's 15. So compounding is real. The compound effect is real. The ability to take the money you make and spiral it into more money is real, and it's powerful. It's very cool.
Yeah, and like there are some like things that went behind. Like, well, obviously, like I invested more capital. I moved some money from some other brokerages into Robinhood that enabled me to trade options on. And so like, there were some things that propelled me from that, $3,000 mark to above 10,000. And then also kind of like Colin talked about, like the risk management side of things, right? Like, so when I first started this, QQQ was like my only way. And I love QQQ, and I'll continue to always invest in QQQ. But like the return on $30,000 only nets you maybe like $100 a week, right? And so what really transformed my income generation is I sold some of my QQQ, and I sold some of those larger positions, and I moved it into some smaller, more risky positions for a part of my portfolio. And that made that $30,000. Now I can break it up into 10 contracts of Mara and 2 contracts of Coin and, 2 contracts of Roku or whatever, right? And so I was able to take that same capital that was making me $100 a week and transform it into $1,000 a week, right? And then now I had an extra $1,000 the next week, and it just propelled and propelled and propelled. And now you're seeing like, obviously the compounding effect, but like the risk management is huge. And Colin said like that's one of the things he wished he knew. That's one of the things that I like continue to stick to. Like I have a good portion of my money in FXAIX and QQQ and some of those like blue chip stocks. Like for example, Apple. Like Apple makes me like $15 to $20 a week, and it costs me $19,000. I can make way more money if I traded that on higher risk assets. But for me, I need to have a portion of my portfolio that is very low return on the option side, but gives me the longevity and the like the know-how in the back of my mind that I know like Apple's not going to zero tomorrow, Amazon's not going to zero tomorrow, QQQ's not going to zero tomorrow, right? And so like there's a portion of my portfolio where I'm only making maybe 0.2 or 0.3% a week, but there's the risk side of my portfolio where I'm making 5, 6, 7, 8% a week. So it balances out, and as you get more money, you learn that risk reward, and you're always learning. And that's one of my favorite parts about being a teacher in ZZZ is I get to continually be reminded of those that are starting on their journey, those that don't know as much as me, those that know way more than me. Teaching is the best way to become better at something. And yeah, I have the privilege of doing that each and every week.
Very cool. And time to get QQQ tattooed.
I might do it. Or FXAIX.
That's what I need. That's what I like to hear.
It's already
Cut
tattooed.
the podcast. Cut the podcast. So
it's tattooed on my DarkMiner logo. So
now I got to get it tattooed on the Ben logo.
Yeah, now we got to do that.
So Colin, if you don't mind closing us out, I'd like to hear about your kind of longer term goals with this whole options thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would love to one day make. Let's see it.
QQQ.
Oh yeah, I see it right there. Yeah. I mean, one day I want to have where I'm, doing $10,000 a month consistently in income on my portfolio, and that's just like a milestone to hit, right? And when I say that, it's $10,000 of not, going high risk too. It's like what DarkMiner was just saying, like, maybe owning some QQQ, owning some Amazon, owning some Apple, some Tesla, right? And I'm trading on some of these stocks, but like doing that with a lot of my portfolio, being not as risky with my capital and with the stocks. I'm never gonna like let go of some of these higher risk stocks, but it's like, how can I do this? How can I do $10,000 a month in a little bit more conservative and a way more like consistent basis of not just like going full portfolio coin puts to make 10K and then the next month it's like, well, it's not working out. So definitely like money wise, like that's, that would be huge, and then just continue to scale it. But it's just always continually getting better, right? Like that's why Sleep Money Club, and we keep talking about like truly like surrounding by people that are still doing it too, so you can learn from them. Maybe they find a good idea, or they learn a lesson from somewhere and they bring it to the club, and hey guys, here's what I learned, here's what we talked about, right? And we do voice chats twice a week. We're like sharing our ideas, we're talking, why are we making this play this week, why are we not doing this week, like those types of things. I just want to continue to do and learn, educate, and get better, because I've been doing it for a couple of years and whatnot, but like there's always so much to learn. So just continue to learn and get better and get to the point where it's like, you're never going to know it all, but you just get more and more confident with it.
Yeah, love that. Well, very cool. Well, this has been fun. I hope this has been education for everybody listening. Thank you both for being on the podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me here, and it's a pleasure working with you guys each and every day.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Don't follow me on Twitter. Follow both of them on Twitter.
I will put links to all of their stuff.
Just DarkMiner, not mine.
And you should follow them all the things. And thank you very much for listening. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.